the West Hartford Chamber of Commerce and the West Hartford Town Department of Economic Development. Along with, we'll be joined by Senators Blumenthal and Murphy to have a very important conversation about what we're calling the hustle, and how individuals who are self-employed, small business owners are being left behind by the PUA, by federal reforms to help with unemployment. And so I want to thank all of our participants who will be speaking today. We have Chris Conway with the West Hartford Chamber of Commerce, Kristen Gorski with the Town of West Hartford, Jackie Harris-Stone, who is an impacted citizen, as well as Wendy Nielsen. So how this issue came to my attention, various constituents reached out to let me know that they were struggling because they are small business owners, they are self-employed, and in order to own their small business, which are vitally important for our community, they needed to work additional jobs. And so they may have taken a shift as a waitress or taught a course at a local university. And so when they applied for unemployment, because they had a W-2 through those jobs, they received state unemployment, but only in very small amounts based on that part-time job that they had. And so then they were cut out of receiving federal unemployment for being self-employed. And so my office worked with Kristen Gorski over at the West Hartford Department of Economic Development, and there was a lot of misinformation on what could or could not happen. And so we went back and forth for weeks, quite frankly, trying to figure out if these individuals had to reapply and if there would be a way that they could have that part-time W-2 employment offset the self-employment, and came to find out that no, it needs to be a federal fix. And so that's why we've invited our 2 U.S. senators to join us. They will be joining us. They had a vote at 11:30, so they're gonna hop on as soon as they get back to their offices. Actually, I see that a message just came in that Senator Murphy is currently voting. So as soon as he completes that, I'm sure he'll join us. But with that, I'm going to turn it over to my good colleagues, Chris Conway over at the Chamber of Commerce.
Thank you, Jillian. And I just really want to just welcome everybody. This is the 6th in a series of virtual small business forums that the Chamber has done in partnership with the town. And, you know, one of our jobs and goals is to get access to the people that can get the answers that our business community needs. And we found this programming to be very valuable, and we thank you for joining us. We have many community members on with us today. I don't want to take up a lot of your valuable time with the senators and Jillian, so I'm going to turn it over to my colleague at the town, Kristen Gorski.
Thank you, Chris. You know, I also just wanted to make a very few remarks here, but you know, I really appreciate you know, how responsive all of our colleagues have been up at the state, as well as, you know, our federal senators. And I think that it's been really valuable for us to you know, work so closely with our business community throughout this really challenging and difficult time. And the Chamber staff, as well as myself, have heard so many stories that have impacted a lot of our business owners. And so knowing that we have these really great and strong resources through our state representatives as well as our senators has been really valuable. I am very interested to hear the perspectives as well as stories from our panelists today. You know, I have been working with Benita Weissman, so I'm quite aware of, you know, what she has going on, but very interested to hear additional perspective and feedback. And then very excited to be able to be joined with Senator Murphy as well as Senator Blumenthal. So thank you very much to everybody who was able to attend today. Without further ado, I will turn it back over to Jillian Gilchrest.
Great, thank you, Kristen. And I would love to jump right into it. So we have asked 3 individuals who have been impacted by this issue to share their experience. And so we are going to start with Jackie Harris-Stone. Jackie, thank you for being here.
Hi, thank you so much for being here and listening. So I am a performing musician and a music teacher. I teach privately. I generally have about 7 income streams going at any one time. Some of those can be up to 20 people in them, for example, my private lessons or my gigs. A lot of times one of those is a church. Churches are also in the same boat. They do not pay into unemployment, and so we as employees do not get unemployment. We're lumped in with PUA. Um, uh, I lost a large amount of my income due to the pandemic. All of a sudden, all my performing work was gone and is gone in the foreseeable future. It's estimated that we may not get back to normal until 2022 as musicians. We'll be the last on board, and this is why this has especially had an impact to us, that we can't go through standard PUA proceeds. If, like most of us, we have 1 or 2 small jobs that are W-2 based, standard W-2 based. I figured out that the lost income from mid-March through fall, when I was being optimistic about getting back there, was about 50% of my earned income from the previous year. As a small business owner, it's not just lost income, the bills still coming in. That would account for over 50% of what I had expected to earn this year. So I applied for unemployment. Connecticut has partial unemployment, so you are able, if your income level drops significantly, to have some to bring you back up again. So I sat down and calculated, and if all my income was included, I would have received a weekly benefit of $570. Instead, I had one job that I had worked for less than a full work week in the previous year that dropped down to a benefit of $57. Because I still have some employment coming in, if I earn more than $75 in a week, I lose that entire opportunity, and with it, the additional $600 that many people get or had gotten per week when they were in unemployment. So basically, when I go every week to recertify, it turns out that I am not eligible for unemployment, and week after week I'm told I'm not eligible. Well, this is where the PUA comes in. The PUA is designed to catch those people who are not traditionally employed and allow them to apply for unemployment. The PUA was pointed out to me by Union Rep, is so broadly written that in fact you do not need to not qualify to be rejected from unemployment insurance in order to receive it. Now, this is an interpretation, but I do believe that it's looking at the law myself, that is correct. Connecticut is putting in a requirement that doesn't actually need to be there. So the fix could be as simple as clarification by the clarification on the laws, because it is not clear that that's needed to be done, but Connecticut is doing it anyway. So what happens in effect is that I lose my chance at unemployment. I can't apply for PUA. So what this turns out to be is the law was never designed to work this way. The law was never designed to have, if you were fully employed in a normal W-2 job, you get your benefits, you're good. If you're fully employed in an alternate employment, for example, self-employment or church employment, you get your benefits, it's good. If you are partially employed in a typical W-2 and you're mostly employed by self-employment or church employment, the law wasn't designed to say, I'm sorry, you're out of luck. But that's what's happening. I'm not able to receive. If you're lucky, you receive a small amount. If you're unlucky like me, you receive nothing. And as I mentioned before, you know, the economic impact on musicians especially, and other small business owners, is going to be much more far-reaching than we could imagine, because it's going to take us a lot longer. We've still got expenses coming in that normally employees don't. So I would implore Senators Murphy and Blumenthal to see what you can do about fixing it, so this loophole that wasn't intended to be here, that's cutting so many out of us out of our benefits that we've paid our unemployment taxes for, we've paid our taxes for, can be shut, and we can actually get the benefits that we paid into.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jackie. And yes, you know, as you're explaining, your industry in particular has been hard hit, and to hear that you're being told it won't fully come back till 2022, we need this fix for a variety of reasons, but that's just a really impactful one. So now I'm going to turn it over to Bonita Weissman to share her experience.
Great. Thank you so much. I'm really happy to be here today because not only for myself, but I feel that I can be a voice for countless number of people who have been affected by this in Connecticut. And, you know, this is a national thing. In my situation, different than Jackie's, but actually first I want to thank two individuals who put Facebook pages together so that the people, those of us who are affected in this crazy manner, have a support. There are two Facebook pages. One is Connecticut Self-Employed and Now Unemployed COVID-19, and the other is Connecticut Unemployed Benefits Info, closed on Saturdays. Now I have to tell you, getting on these sites and going through this horrendous journey since I tried to apply for benefits on April 8th has been an amazing support. It's also been very eye-opening. I consider myself, well, let's backtrack. Okay. I say those addresses so if people are listening and they want support, get on those Facebook pages. It's informational and it's also camaraderie and community. I own West Hartford Massage Therapy. I have owned West Hartford Massage Therapy in the center for 30 years. I have been a mainstay in West Hartford. I was incredibly active in the West Hartford Chamber way back. Most of you guys are so young on this panel, you probably don't know these people. But Linda French, who used to run the chamber, and the people I rubbed shoulders with at that time at all the after hours events were people like Rob Rolfson, Ron Van Winkle, Bruce Feldman, Jonathan Harris, Rob Bouvier. I mean, the people who were running the town. That is how long I've been sustaining my practice, which I love. I love the work I do, and I love my clients. And I'm really sad to say, and I'm announcing this publicly right now, that I made a decision last week to close down my business. Now, part of that decision has to do with COVID-19. And in these 4 months, while I've been actively fighting for figuring out what's going on with my Department of Labor issues, I've been also researching what's happening with COVID and what the practice of hands-on, if that's contraindicated or indicated for people, if it's okay with the uncertainty. So anyway, for lots of reasons, including my advanced age of 66, I decided I need to close up my practice, but some had to do with the financial. I applied for unemployment for the first time in my life on April 8th. I got notification about 10 days later, which was amazing because they were saying it would take 5 weeks, that I was receiving, after taxes, $19 a week unemployment. Now, that was because, like Jackie, and like Wendy, there are a bunch of performing artists here. I'm also a professional dancer. I do not earn my living as a dancer. I perform still, but no one pays me. Anyway, the point is, I teach one class a week, one semester a year, which I've been teaching forever since there was a dance major at the University of Hartford in the Hart School. So that's what they based my monetary determination on. I earn $1,185 before taxes teaching that course. I actually lose money teaching that course. It takes me 3 hours out of the chunk of my day. But to me, I love dance. I have gifts to teach. And I do that because there aren't a lot of improvisers in town. I teach improvisational dance, but I do it because it's important to me. So clearly I don't do it for the money. I earn my living at West Hartford Massage Therapy. a lot more than $1,185. So I did not know what to do with this, you know? So I immediately started dealing with the DOL as best I could, which, in case you don't know, it was impossible to get a hold of. I mean, hours and hours on your speakerphone while you're doing your life. And then all of a sudden it would click off. Hours and hours of getting a call that said, we're not taking any longer any phone message, hours, days. I got through to someone who told me, well, amend it. I mean, appeal it. And I did right there. I did an appeal that day and sent it off, and I got a confirmation in my hand that they got my appeal. Anyway, what happened was that nothing happened with my appeal. I still have not heard from them after making 2 calls to adjudication. The first person told me she couldn't find the appeal in their records. And I'm like, well, I have it here in my hand, a copy. Anyway, the second person I talked to, and this is again, waiting months, weeks, emailing people, getting emails back that said things like, there are 1,500 unanswered emails on my page. I'll get to yours as soon as possible. I sent that same person an email a week later, and this time there were, at least those were auto responses. Second time I got an auto response that said there are 2,800 unanswered emails. So anyway, I'm just giving you that background to understand how frustrating it is to try to like figure out why they're not counting my $60,000, okay? And anyway, eventually I started dealing with some of the legislators. I wrote a letter to Sherry Cantor. A friend of mine said, oh, Matt Ritter's great, talk to him. Everyone started passing me around. Finally, I worked with Derek Slapp, and he put me in touch with someone at the DOL, and he supposedly put me in touch with his legal, aide and legislative aide, and she never returned my phone calls. The person at the DOL did respond to me, and by the way, I'm just going to show you. Can you guys see that? That is my records of printed out stuff that I have. That's my file. Anyway, this woman eventually wrote me back. Ms. Weissman, I'm sorry to inform you that any eligibility for standard unemployment, including your adjunct teaching, does render a claimant ineligible for the federal self-employed program, PUA. Connecticut DOL has no discretion in altering the federal eligibility stipulations. However, since you are receiving weekly benefits from state unemployment, $19, even a low rate, you should be receiving FPUC. Please provide your DOB, date of birth, or your SSN so I can have a colleague look up your account. So of course I gave her that information. Did I ever hear back from her? No. Emailed back twice? No, never heard back from her. But at least at that point, I understood that it wasn't just something funky with my account, it was a federal issue. That was in the end of May. So I've been dealing with this since, April 17th. And it's very frustrating, and as you can tell. So I do thank Derek Slapp for at least putting me in touch with someone who gave me an answer. And then I could begin to work with some of the other legislators and get some help. It's been incredibly frustrating. And, when you don't want to have to leave your business, because this is just a very heartbreaking thing for me. I can't earn my living as a dancer. That's not something, that's not something that's happening for me at this time of life. I used to be a professor at Connecticut College, taught at Wesley and at Trinity, but teaching one class here or there is not going to do it. Anyway, what I would like to say, I got advice from different kinds of frustration. I contacted Susan Raff at WFSB Channel 3. I contacted the I-Team at WFSB Channel 3 or 4 times. Never heard back from the news stations. I called employee advocacy groups. People were just picking up the ball and then dropping it. And that's really hard. Kristen Gorski, Kristen, you're the only person I managed to talk to in person. And that means an awful lot to those of us who are struggling and can't get things worked out. No one else was, I gave everyone else my phone number, no one else was willing to talk to me. And Jillian, thank you so much for taking up this cause. And Chris, thank you for getting me in touch with Kristen Gorski. But anyway, what I want to say before I close is what it feels like to me, I don't have any answers, but what it feels like to me is that there needs to be communication between the state of Connecticut's organizations. It does not feel like the Department of Labor is talking to the Department of Economic and Community Development. It doesn't feel like the DECD is talking to the SBA. It doesn't feel like the SBA is talking to the DOL. It feels like everyone is working in some sort of isolated bubble and unwilling to look at each other's stuff or work cohesively to, I mean, I don't know when the officials understood about this W-2 issue. I know I was putting it out there to everyone I could, but just a citizen knowing this issue, knowing that, I mean, on the Facebook pages, there are people, for instance, a wedding photographer. Of course, he can't work right now. He can't get his unemployment because in 2019, he coached soccer 4 times. So 4 times, see, count that, that's 5. Anyway, he coached soccer and he takes in just a teeny amount of money, like my 19. A salon owner, she can't be given money on her salon because she bartends 1 night a week. I mean, this is just inappropriate. And no one seems to be picking up the ball and doing anything with it. And this is not, you know, there was an article on NBC News about bureaucratic snag leaves thousands of gig workers shut out of relief aid. You know, that makes it sound like it's just gig workers. And what are gig workers anyway? Some people might not know. I'm different than Jackie's story. I make all my money, essentially, except for that $1,185 at a very respected, much loved career. And I should be getting, you know, some notice for that, some reward for that. So this not talking to each other, I don't know if that's the issue, you know, and no one's told me about the, you know, about understanding that you can't even earn some money. Now I'm learning that from the Facebook pages, how people are starting to go back to work and still getting some unemployment. I mean, there's just not information for the average citizen or for the citizens who like to talk a lot like me. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Bonita. And I'm sorry that you have to be closing down, but I wish you well in the next journey of life. And I am so appreciative. One of the highlights of being a state representative is meeting individuals who, when faced with difficulties, want to help others so that they don't have to face the same difficulties. And getting to connect with you is one of those moments. So I appreciate that you have really continued to fight for this, not just for yourself, but for everyone else. With that, I'd love to turn it over to Wendy Nielsen to share her experience.
Hello, everybody. Thank you. I wasn't too prepared for this meeting, but yeah, I've been through an adventure with this too, let me tell you. I'm a ballroom dance teacher. I've been doing this for about 38, 39 years. And I did used to work at studios, and I went on my own completely about 10 years ago. So I'm very self-employed. You know, I have about 7 different jobs, and one of them happens to be at a community center that pays me as a W-2 employee. So I went through the same thing with that. I remember going to work on Friday the 13th at one of my jobs. I have a big class of people, and the guy came out and he said, "We're shutting down. This is your last day." Bam. So, and everything shut down that day. After a while, a lot of the dance studios went out of business where I rented space from. And at first I panicked. I thought I have to get a different job. So I was looking for jobs, you know. And then I found out through this Facebook page that, wow, you could get unemployment. So I didn't even think about that. But when I filed, I didn't put down my job that I was still getting paid for, because the job I'm still getting paid for the W-2 job, whether I worked or not. But I felt like I had to keep teaching these people. So I Zoomed 3 classes online for those people that were still paying me it was a Newington Community Center. And so I thought, wow, that would be great, because, you know, this is my income is way down. Luckily I have some savings, you know, I could live off of that. I also have a daughter in college, who I told her she could go to a nice, you know, private college for 2 years. I would try and pay for it. So now I'm having trouble paying for that. So when I applied for unemployment, what they did was they took it out of that job who's already paying me. So now I have to pay that back. And it was $33 a week. So I'm like, wow, $33 a week. That helps. So yeah, I went through this whole big long thing. I remember calling the Department of Labor every day, and I'm not exaggerating. I would be on the phone for like 10 hours a day, trying to call and then hang up. Call, no one answers. Call, no one. And it was to the point where you get a little nutty, you know. So the people on the Facebook page, we finally figured out what was going on, that we couldn't collect if we had any kind of a W-2 job whatsoever. There was no way. So that's what happened to me. And you know, this has been a long road. Little by little, I'm getting jobs trickling in, but it's not enough to live on. I'm teaching that other job in Newington in person now. And, you know, they're paying me the same rate, which is great, but I only have a couple people in class with masks in a hot gym. So life is really hard right now. You know, it's really hard to make a living. But I've decided, it's been such a long time since this started that I'm starting to look for another job. And after, you know, I'm 62 years old and I'm thinking I got to change careers. I've been applying for jobs. And it's just fun. I realized halfway through applying for jobs, I have to change my resume so people can't tell how old I am, because who's going to hire me, you know? And as far as work experience, I've been a ballroom dance professional since I was 22 years old, and I'm 62 now. So, you know, I don't have a lot of experience doing other things. I mean, I think I have a lot to offer because I have, you know, sales experience and all kinds of other things that go along with running your own business. But that's where I'm at right now. I'm thinking I need to change careers, although my students, of which I have hundreds, are pushing me to keep going, but most of them are not ready to come back. They're scared, you know. So, and it's hard teaching people with a mask and not being able to touch them. And let me tell you, it's really developed my communication skills, because I have to explain things without touching people. I usually, you know, literally put them in their positions and show them how it feels and stuff like that. So that's the boat I'm in. I've given up on, you know, I've also been on a lot of forums and talks, and our state representative here, I live in Farmington, Mike D'Amico, actually called me on the phone several times. He was really nice, but there's nothing that he can do. There's nothing anybody can do. So I can't fight something that we can't change. So I pretty much gave up on it. And also now that pandemic unemployment is coming to an end. So I think it's time to get a different job or work for Amazon or something. I don't know. You know, find something else out to do. And I at first I was so aggravated, because I felt like, wow, you know, if I didn't have this W-2 job, I could keep teaching online and get unemployment like a lot of my other friends were doing. They were like, they're fine, you know, they're collecting whatever, $800 a week or whatever it is. But I'm not bitter anymore. I figure, well, they were lucky and I was unlucky. But, you know, I was upset that I was getting punished for actually working, you know, like you work more, you get paid less. The more you work, the less you get paid, kind of thing. But, you know, what are you going to do? You have to accept it. So, and at this point, it would be great if somebody could help out, but I really don't know if that's possible. So this is my last ditch effort. I also got, I applied for a PPP loan, which I got, but I'm going to have to pay about a third of it back. It wasn't a big chunk of money. I'm going to have to pay a part of that back because I don't have any, you know, operating expenses really. I rent space, but I only rent space if I'm teaching. So I don't have employees or anything like that. So that's where I am.
Well, thank you, Wendy. Thank you so much for being here and sharing your story. One of the reasons I became a state representative is because when there's an issue that doesn't make sense, I refuse to just accept, oop, that's the way it is. So that is why I'm so happy. We are joined. I see that Senator Blumenthal has been able to join us, and I believe Senator Murphy is on his way. Just to give a quick recap for you, Senator, we've heard from 3 amazing women who have similar yet different experiences. So 2 of them have worked about 7 jobs at the same time because that's what they do to bring in their income. And then we've heard from Bonita, who primarily has one source of income but teaches a course 1 semester a year. And because of the way the PUA was written, or that's my understanding, but I want to hear from you, they're only eligible for unemployment through the positions where they have a W-2. And so our first presenter, Jackie, is getting a mere $57 a week. Bonita is getting a mere $19 a week. And Wendy shared she's getting $33 a week. Bonita also let us know that there are 2 amazing Facebook groups where there are hundreds of people sharing similar stories of struggle. And she shared 2 examples, which I just think are so telling. One of us, an individual who's a wedding photographer, a gentleman, and he only coaches, well, he coached 4 times in the last year. And so he is ineligible based on his self-employment as a wedding photographer. And then a salon owner who bartends and again, can only receive the unemployment for that bartending. So we're coming to you to hear your thoughts and to see if there's any way, and of course, you know, if there's anything I can do at the state level, I am your partner, but we wanted to hear from you, and so thank you for being here.
Thank you very much. I really want to thank Representative Gilchrest for having me and Senator Murphy in this very, very important discussion. I want to thank Wendy, Bonita, and Jackie for sharing their stories. In fact, I've been keeping track through my staff of what they have been saying, and I just got a summary put before me, and I know of your stories and of the profound hardship and hard work that you're going through. We just finished votes, and I apologize for joining late, but you know, the phenomenon you're describing, this gap in our present system, is so profoundly disturbing to me. The difficulties faced by self-employed workers who also make supplemental income through other means of employment. These individuals should not have to settle for the meager benefits through regular state unemployment when the lion's share of their income comes from their self-employed businesses. And to hear your stories really heartbreaking for me. And I have been determined to change the system, to improve it. Unfortunately, the proposal made last night, the so-called Heal It Act from the Republicans, does nothing about it. But we're going to be fighting to change it over the next couple of weeks as we go into negotiations with the Republicans. As you probably know, the Republican proposal is draconian in its cuts to the additional $600. It would go to $200 under their proposal, and then 70% of income when the state unemployment systems are able to restructure the system so as to work. You'll recall how very excruciatingly difficult, time-consuming, costly the initial changes were. I can't tell you how many people spoke to me about how difficult it was for them to access this system under the initial $600. And we're going to go through the same kind of traumatic and costly system again if the Republicans' proposal is adopted. But we are going to fight it, trying to keep the present system intact. In fact, I am a co-sponsor with a number of my colleagues of a measure that would simply extend the current $600 until we fall below certain levels of unemployment. In other words, below 11%, and then there would be graduate cuts. These graduated cuts or phased in cuts would be according to the drop in unemployment, which is a rational way to do it, rather than simply draconian cuts as the Republican Heal It Act would do. I've joined colleagues in introducing the American Workforce Rescue Act, and it would guarantee that $600 for Connecticut, but also for the rest of the country, which I think is important, not just to those families putting food on the table and providing clothing for their children, but also for our economy. We're not going to have recovery. We're not going to reopen our economy, so to speak, unless the consumers of this country are empowered and enabled to have purchasing power. And so it really is to all of our benefit to guarantee those basic requirements of $600. And again, dealing with self-employed who have supplemental income has to be a priority. Let me just sort of finish this part of my comments by saying that the Republican proposal falls short of the HEROES Act, which was passed by the House of Representatives in a number of other ways. First of all, there's no real aid for state and local governments. The HEROES Act has about $1 trillion. There's no real aid for hospitals. There was about $100 billion and is in the HEROES Act. The amount of money for testing is way below what it should be. We all know testing delays plague Connecticut as well as other states. In Connecticut, it's 6 to 10 days, which makes the test far less useful than it should be. We need more supplies and swabs and antigens to use in those tests. And we're not going to reopen our economy until we have effective testing. The amount of money for vaccines and therapeutics development is, again, less than it should be. The Republican proposal of $1 trillion is way less than the $3 trillion in the HEROES Act. And there is a lack of the HEROES Fund, hazardous duty pay for our frontline workers, police, firefighters, first responders, grocery and postal workers, all of the frontline workers who have been reporting for duty on the job during this very difficult period. I've been a leading advocate of the HEROES Fund. There are a number of other ways that this Republican proposal falls way short of what it should be, and in fact offers additional special interest benefits that are of no real use in reopening our economy. So suffice it to say, $600 unemployment insurance is going to be our goal. We're going to fight for it. The American Workforce Rescue Act provides a way to reduce that $600 when the unemployment rate justifies it, when it goes below 11%. But these kinds of cuts and the failure to address the kinds of gaps that you've been hearing about this morning makes this measure unacceptable to me, and I think most of my Democratic colleagues, and even some of my Republican colleagues. The Republican caucus is deeply divided. They have yet to get their act together, even internally. They have yet to present a united front, and that's going to be a challenge for them going forward. And let me say finally, the blanket shield of immunity that Majority Leader McConnell is offering to employers and to others, in effect giving them a 5-year pass on any accountability, diminishes their incentive to provide personal protective equipment and other essential protection for their workers. They have nothing to fear if they are providing that kind of reasonable protection. If they're doing what a reasonable employer should do, they have nothing to fear from this supposed hobgoblin, a mythical threat of lawsuits that Senator McConnell has manufactured. We have seen no massive threat of lawsuits come to reality. And I think that I, for one, want to protect the opportunity for people to vindicate their rights, keep the courthouses open, not block the courthouse door to litigants who are genuinely harmed if employers or others fail to provide these protections. And my hope is that we will move forward on a rational, bipartisan basis, as we have on all the other packages, the care packages, for example, which was adopted unanimously by the Senate and is benefiting Connecticut right now. But as you well know, being in the House of Representatives, the absence of aid for state and local governments is probably the most glaring immediate omission from this package. State and local governments around the country are going to be laying off police, firefighters, teachers. There's no aid that will enable them to continue those vital services, and that is a dramatic, unforgivable failing, unacceptable failing in this proposal. So again, thank you, Representative Gilchrest. Thank you to Jackie, Wendy, Benita for sharing your story. You've been so powerful and eloquent. And thank you to the Chamber of Commerce and the Economic Development, Chris and Kristen, for your great work in West Hartford.
Thank you, Senator Blumenthal. Thank you so much for being here today, but also working and fighting for the people of Connecticut and DC in these difficult political times and in these difficult public health times. We really appreciate what you're doing for us. I'm now going to turn it over to Senator Murphy.
Hey everybody, sorry, my camera here got screwed up. There we go. Listen, thank you everybody for asking Dick and I to join, and let me add my apologies. We were both on the floor for the last 2 hours, so I came in at the very end of folks' comments, and I will make sure to get the full download, but I obviously understand the extent of the problem. Our office is absolutely overwhelmed right now by rightly panicked Connecticut residents who should absolutely be eligible for unemployment benefits by virtue of the fact that they have effectively lost their income, but because of the way in which the rules have been written, have found themselves on the outside. And so I frankly would be pretty brief because Dick, I think, covered the political and policy landscape pretty well with respect to where we are today. It's just stunning to both of us that this administration and the Republicans in the Senate would believe that the right response to a pandemic that is raging out of control, 16% unemployment, is to cut unemployment benefits by $1,600 a month. What has been sort of holding our economy together is not just those benefits, but consumer spending that has remained fairly active throughout the pandemic because of the benefits. The economy just falls apart if we see this kind of cut. But what we had hoped was that in the wake of the CARES Act, we would watch carefully what was working and what wasn't and make adjustments. And as you mentioned, for mixed earners, folks that have some combination of independent income and W-2 income, and also for some that are making predominantly or exclusively non-W-2 income, they've been left on the outside here. Now, Adam Schiff, a good friend of mine, has a proposal in the House that I think some version of it should be included in this legislation that would seek to solve this problem. But as Dick mentioned, I hate to tell you, but we are involved in a very different conversation right now in the Senate. We're not involved in a conversation about building upon the CARES Act, maintaining the level of support and fixing the problems. We are just trying to hold on to what we have. All of this is going to happen in the next 7 to 14 days. Republicans just introduced their version of this bill last night. Negotiations are literally happening as we speak. And I will get a full download of everybody's stories today. Hilda Santiago, who sort of heads up unemployment casework in my office. Chandra also does a lot of work. Many of you might know her. We will make sure that we make the case to not only maintain the benefits, but to adjust them in a way that sort of understands how thousands and thousands of Connecticut residents have fallen through the cracks here. 2 very quick additional comments. Let me just underscore what Dick said about our primary mission, which is ending the virus and ending the pandemic. There is no amount of subsidy that can cure the problem if we don't have enough testing and we don't come up with a vaccine and we don't allocate enough money to reopen schools and businesses in a safe way. And so we're going to fight to make the unemployment package as generous as possible. But we also have to convince our colleagues to allocate hundreds of billions of dollars to states, to public health districts, to hospitals, to schools, and then to distribute money for a vaccine in the right manner so that we can see the light at the end of the tunnel, because there's no amount of economic subsidy and stimulus that does the trick if it takes 14 days to get a test returned. And then finally, I have been one of the original supporters of the sort of direct cash payments to people. And the version that I supported way back in the spring was one where we would make automatic cash payments every 4 months until unemployment got back down to mid-single digits. And I still think that's the right thing to do, in part because it is a very unsatisfactory and an insufficient mechanism to make up for the problems in unemployment benefits not reaching everybody. So I don't want to sort of accept another cash payment as a substitute for fixing unemployment, but one approach may be to try to make sure that we do have another cash payment in this next bill that is broad-based, so that if we can't fix all of the problems in the unemployment system, then at least there's a cash payment coming. I'm not telling you that's my strategy or a strategy in substitute of fixing the problem. I just want to put it on the table for consideration. So again, Jillian, thank you for pulling us together here in the Chamber of Commerce and to the West Hartford town government. Thanks for letting us be a part of this. I'm sorry we're sort of in and out a little bit here, but I've been reading the chat and I will make sure to sort of download everything that I missed here as well.
Well, thank you, Senator Murphy. And I echo what I said to Senator Blumenthal. We feel very fortunate to have you fighting for us in DC, and just truly during these difficult times, appreciate all that you're doing. Before we get into Q&A, I just have one thing to ask the 2 senators. Once an advocate, always an advocate. So I'm wondering, in the next 7 to 14 days, is there anything that those of us on the outside can do to push to include this change in a bill? Do you think any kind of public movement, or is there anything we could do to really drum up support to include it?
Well, I'll just say this. I think, obviously you are preaching to the choir here, and that is often the problem, to the extent it's a problem, when you're fighting for progressive policy in Connecticut. Frankly, this isn't really progressive policy. This is just, common sense. But one of the things that I will make sure to sort of go back and sort of get a download on what's been said here. But to the extent that the stories that were told on video here could be sort of conveyed to Dick and I in writing, one of the things that we will be doing is being on the floor of the Senate, working through our committees to try to tell the real life stories of what is happening right now with unemployment benefits that don't reach enough people, and what will happen if the existing benefit gets cut by $400 a month, $400 a week. So I think sharing your stories with us in a way we can translate to our colleagues is really, really important. I think that's one way in which you can help us be more effective in pursuing this case.
You know, I would just add, I think Chris said it very well, the power of these faces and voices, the stories, are what really will carry the day. And the more you can enlist others in your professions, if you have professional connections to other states through chambers of commerce, as well as through the professional connections you may have to legislators or therapists or any of these professions. But when I hear that Bonita received, I think it was $5 a week, that Wendy received $33 a week, people can't live on that amount. And I just want to say, you know, I have spent these last 5 months or so all around the state of Connecticut listening to stories of hardship and heartbreak. And, you know, I've just been so moved and inspired by the courage and strength of people like the ones on this call and others who have endured even deeper hardship and loss. You know, we've all, in fact, lost friends. A good friend of mine whose children grew up playing with mine passed away as a result of this deadly, insidious disease. So we are still in the midst of a public health crisis threatened by a potential next wave for the Republicans to be proposing a HEAL Act that, in effect, cuts back on our commitment when we most need it. And we're not going to solve the economic crisis unless we solve the public health crisis. It is absolutely reprehensible. And I hope that we can raise America's voices as you are raising voices on this call and reaching out to others, frankly, in states of my Republican colleagues to persuade them of the urgency of this issue.
Well, thank you, Senators. In our last few minutes, Kristen, are there any themes that you see in the questions that you want to share?
Sure. Thank you, Jillian, and thank you both to Senator Blumenthal as well as Senator Murphy for your insights, your support, your advocacy. It's much appreciated. You know, I think that one of the really interesting items that popped up in the chat that I'd like to read is another story. It's really quite moving. Hello, I filed in March and was denied in April. Self-employed, so waited to file for PUA. Filed for PUA in May, approved, but locked until June 13th. I had income starting on May 15th, lived off of savings for about 10 weeks and looking for back pay. No one has been able to help. In addition to that, my wife is also a 1099 worker. She received PUA for 10 weeks and is now locked out of unemployment because she tried to get a job to work from home. She worked for 8 days and had to quit due to the necessary precautions not being taken. A note, she is 9 months pregnant with no unemployment. Any advice?
Wow. Wow.
Well, that is a really powerful story. You're absolutely right, Kristen. If that person could contact my office, we'll do whatever we can. You know, we have been working on these individual cases relentlessly over these past months. Sometimes we can make a difference. We try to make a difference every time. And if we can help, we will.
Well, again, I thank you, Senator Blumenthal. I thank you, Senator Murphy, Kristen and Chris, the Chamber and the Town of West Hartford, and our amazing panelists. My next steps will be to circle back with Jackie, Bonita, and Wendy and see how I can help you to get these stories shared with our senators. I'm also thinking with all the talent that there is with all of you who are self-employed, I'm thinking some videos. There could be some really great things to really get the stories shared. So I thank everyone who joined us. Chris, do you have any final thoughts before we jump off?
Sure, I just want to thank, first of all, you, Jillian, for organizing this, and certainly Senators Blumenthal and Murphy, who all three of you, along with your colleagues, have always been accessible to us, and even more so in the wake of COVID-19. So we do appreciate your accessibility and your responsiveness to the needs of our business community. So thank you very much for that. And I would just like to add, we may not have gotten to every question, so we can forward those to the senator's offices and to Jillian. You can just send them to either me, which is cconway@whchamber.com, or you can send them to Kristen and we will forward them for you.
Chris, if you and Jillian and others could contact my office in Hartford. Rich Keogh has been on this call, and he and my staff there really want to get to work on these cases if you bring them our attention, and also any questions that we haven't addressed.
Very good. Thank you, Senator.
Well, thank you, everyone. This was a fantastic conversation, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.